Hello. I'm just going to read through my website, which is benatelier.ucos.com, which is the SAFCOMMS Limited homepage or home site or main website, which talks basically about the aspirations I had at the point of starting the whole communications infrastructure that I've made and developed into the POWI system, and the sort of processes that, although on umotsis.ucos.net, they are not described exactly in the same way in terms of the titles I've given to each of the fixes I've applied to the existing infrastructure in technology and all that sort of thing. However, they are arranged in such a way that sort of describes the best way in which I aspired to create a system that could shore up the liquid property. That's the best way of explaining it. The spiritual property, your spiritual worth, your spiritual qualities. And these are the aspirations I set out. These are the hopes I set out. This is what sort of grounds the whole system, if you know what I mean, and starts it off. However, there's no actual phenomena necessarily created that was able to become a system in such within the SAFCOM's remit. However, a lot of things sprung from the SAFCOM's aspiration, which sort of plants it somewhere in the think tank as the origin of the thought, or the origin of the creation with which I was able to equip the Umosrus phenomena and the ultimately go towards the potential of taking over the Umosrus practice with great gusto and making it into something that became hopefully, this is still what I aspire to make it into, a physical attribution and everything that it says on the tin. So I'll start with the most recent update on this, which refers to the light book or the life book on the homepage. Now, this refers to the visas.ucos.com setup, which is actually a Umosrus preferred quality now because it is actual phenomena. But I've mentioned it on the homepage of SAFCOMMS because obviously this is everything that SAFCOMMS is leading to and hoping one day to become. It'll be a great thing when the spiritual wishes of people become the physical reality of their practice. And that's the idea of SAFCOMMS. That's the whole point of what the SAFCOMMS website is about. So let me start and read through all the hopes and aspirations that I laid down back in 2012, 13, or wherever it was. And let's just see how I might make a few additional notes as to how that has evolved and become something of phenomena within the existing, the current, the future structure, and the current structure with which I'm equipping Umosrus to become a future practice. So let's start from the top, the homepage of SAFCOMMS. The Light Book. As from Saturday the 6th of October, don't worry about the dates too much, but 2018, the Book of Life will be available to certain countries, provided your name appears in it. The arrangements are that whatever system it is arranged for, you will be able to watch it in the comfort of your own homes on the internet, satellite television, cable and wireless, or terrestrial TV. Finding it does not require much research, but you may be equipped for it and never find it because you have not looked for it. I made it as a gift for my father for him to open. And to explain some of that, we got part way into the system to set it up. I set him if you like, a conundrum which he unraveled within Seven Seals to do with racing on television and horses that he bet. And every single time he got the right one at the optimum moment. And I made notes of it. And he certainly was the one who sparked the whole thing off once I had filled it up with the existing structure of what I'm putting out there on YouTube, or will get people are putting out there on YouTube to fill up the stories that are coming from the system that I'm creating and the works that are arranged to complement what we're doing. Obviously, these works are people's own works and full praise for their endeavors and their artwork and their music and all the lovely things you listen to. But you must remember this is the existing structure of what the Life Book is. Okay, it's um, if you like, the facilitated process of giving links to things that are relevant to you when you're in the Book of Life, so that everything you open up and come to is consecutively leading to other things that are more to do with what you're doing. And the whole process of creating the system is facilitating the process within your living rooms. If you look at the in-awe description on my Umozis description on my Umozis website, .ucos.net, umozis.ucos.net, you will see that the services that have come from the SAFCOMMS phenomena, the SAFCOMMS origin into the physical reality, the Powy reality, are Christian AI based, and they're leading to facilitate a process where you don't have to control, in sort of a more a wide reaching way, less specific. So you can't necessarily specifically require things from it, and you get the whole feel of it, that you get something, although you wish for something in particular, you get something slightly different, but obviously slightly relevant to someone else, or less selfish, or less, not selfish, but less to do with your own ambition or exactly what you required. But it replaces, in a sort of, it talks parables, when you're on the Book of Life and you get into the program of watching the programs on Google, on YouTube, and the other facilities that will be provided, depending on who you choose as friends on Facebook and what happens on Twitter and all this sort of thing, how it works. But mainly, we're talking about YouTube and the process I'm setting up, because it is an audio visual thing, it's a music and visual thing. And the whole thing, if you look at my Umozis website, what it's describing is a system where we live in a heavenly reality with viewing walls around, in a modern space age society, with the inner so perfect that the interior arc web so perfect that everything is specific to your requirements, with viewing walls that may take up a whole wall in front of you. And you're able to tune in, and through ESP control, or wishes or hopes or aspirations, the better wishes of the person within, as I described, you're able to view parts of the universe. You're able to interact with the living universe that the heavenly world is made up of. So when you interact with it, you go into it, and you're able to see the planets and the stars and the people and everything that's made up, and interact, and ultimately, purchase items off the screen. That's the plan, with universal credits, without actually being able to explore space physically through these dimensional portals, where we're able to, um, you know, uh, if you like, replicate things from within the universe to the reality here, if you like, rather than actually saying there's a portal here between the universe, you actually get the full replication of that thing, the physical reality of it here in your living room, when you use your universal credits to purchase certain items. So that's, so it'll be a whole interactive basis of the universe and the platform itself that we're made up, as you're able to watch the beautiful scenery and surroundings, and also, you can switch to different channels and interact with them, and all using ESP in this interface, without using remote controls and all that sort of thing. And the whole thing will be specified to the comfort of your leisure activity, or also your work activity, because you'll be working with people within the universe, or other people on the platform, through this interface network system. So that's basically, if you're part of the Lifebook, it's a great thing to be part of. It'll do away with the existing global channels, global media. Yes, you will be able to access that if you need to, but it's not essential, and most people will do without that and prefer to live their local life in their local interconnected worlds, and connecting with other platforms when the other platforms spring up, and the whole network making something um, much more futuristic. That's why my bent, if you like, on YouTube is predominantly around space exploration, science, all that sort of thing, to do with the Gaia reality, the belief that other people are in the universe. There's things going on within the universe. So ultimately, the Umozis product of the SAFCOMMS wish of the light book, or the life book, is the viewing walls, the physical reality of the viewing walls in the interior arc web, in the interconnected network that we live in, the communities, the interconnected communities, and everything else, and the interface technologies that will come from that. And also, ultimately, the whole program will operate on this interface technology, and everything else to do with it. So that's the explanation of the thing. The thing that SAFCOMMS is leading to. The thing that the goal of SAFCOMMS is, to fill that light book, to fill that life book, the life book, with information on everyone who appears in it, and the only discriminative factor is if you are contravening heinously crimes against the Holy Spirit. If you're contravening the Holy Spirit in heinous ways, then you will not be included in the life book. It's that simple. That's how it's judged. It's marked out. It's judged by higher powers. The universal element within our surrounding platforms and our connections to them, the universal host. They have seen our works. They have seen what we do on this earth. They've seen our good things. They've seen our bad things, and we're in a position ultimately to judge and divide the world into the segments it needs to be, where some people are under surveillance because of their illegal or anti contravening the Holy Spirit in many ways and the laws of the Holy Spirit, and the people who aren't in that situation are able to operate with the interface technology and the privilege of the universal infrastructure that we are providing through from the origin of the first thought, from when SAFCOMMS started, up to the physical reality, ultimately in the future of when the UMOSIS reality shall become something physical. So that's basically the whole process, and that's what I'm trying to arrange. And that's all the media technologies. And if you look at my UMOSIS website, or my UMOSIS video 2, second video about UMOSIS, you'll be able to see about the technology of ENA and how that affects the whole system and how everything is interface based without, I mean, there will be touch screens and that sort of thing, but basically it's interface based without too much physical interaction with it. It's more the wishes and the requirements. It's all taken in hand, provided you're part of the system. So that's what that's about. So next there is, so I just get the next page up. Okay. So welcome to SAFCOMMS. Welcome to SAFCOMMS, the spiritual arc web of faith. This is a primary system for integrating all my creative knowledge through the internet and all other communication systems that are available to me. It entitles anyone who chooses to associate with SAFCOMMS to have resources that enable the user to have full protection, ultimately, over intellectual property and personal communication systems that require such protection over a variety of risks. Whether these risks threaten to requisition liquid property through illegal spyware by stealing information that may be vulnerable, or whether you're at risk of losing out to the media maelstrom because no sooner have you thought of an idea, your system is not stable enough to prevent someone else patenting it for themselves. We are here to help you. As the system has built up over the years, I've designed a range of products which can be offered to equip yourself with a large range of security phenomena. This does not mean that you'll be able to make yourself above the law, but it does mean that systems, homes, offices, and vehicles can be protected from their vulnerabilities. Among some of the products you'll see some areas that I'm developing, such as bridge, caps, fault finding, and balance funnel web, BFW. These are specifically set up through the bridge network and are enabled by the predictive or visionary nature of the ARC web system to run complex procedures in health and safety and crime and accident infrastructure, alongside system diagnosis and providing structure and support for business initiatives, ultimately when the products that I'd hoped for at this stage bear fruit in the UMOSIS reality. The entire communications development package leads to the light web, our final product. This is the culmination of all security phenomena by SAFCOMMS to generate a virtual platform in contrast to the infamous Tor, which is used widely as a black market surveillance-free system. This leads on to POWI, which is again the UMOSIS product of the SAFCOMMS hopes, and this is something which I attest to on visas.ucos.com, vses.ucos.com, which is the home of the light web and the way the Livebook and all the systems in the UMOSIS program shall run. To understand the nature of the arc web, you should look at RAW, FOR, HAW, and LAW, HAW, LAW, RAW, and FAW for a full explanation. Well, I'll come on to that in a minute. Okay, so the first product is something called Crivict. I won't go into the details here, but we've got Crivic is, these are complex beliefs I had at the origin when I sort of because you have a CADSA, you're able to access your higher level, your ultimate goal, where you've reached and where you've attained. And in the process of creating Kravik, these are things I needed. I needed to destroy consumer restraints, take out illegal biodoping, the use of drinking blood or whatever it is that enable people to have an advantage over other people or get biodoping, or things that made, around the time of the Olympics, I was aware of people using some method, the London Olympics, I was aware of people using methods to enhance their performance through sort of transhumanist ways, which ultimately are not sporting. The Olympics and things like that, for the Greeks, for the humans, for the non universal people who haven't been through the escalation process. I believe you shouldn't get superhumans competing against superhumans and that sort of thing, who have been adapted or modified in some way, or even totally built up. And so my whole process about the IPI, or the M, it leads me on to the process, but that's actually something slightly different, which is MIBD. That's another product which I won't explain in too much detail as well. Micro illegal biodoping inversion is the idea of that. So MIBD is the process of inverting that and turning it into something where people aren't able to gain an advantage over other people through negligent means, against usually putting the Holy Spirit to in bad use. And so we have this process of Kravik which enhances the system. And when I put things like RAL ramp on there, RALRAMP, it means you get back your own liquid property. It doesn't mean you take other people's. It doesn't mean you have the clout to take other people's ideas. It just means you get your own liquid property. And then invoke perishable inversion of elemental regeneration to structure infinitum. Infinitum was something I was using a long time ago. I now use Bufu X, Balanced Final Web X, which is a process of enhancing the system, taking it out there and making things go wider, and escalating rather than, but in a process of sort of spirals of increasement rather than a continuum system, which is also something I mentioned here, which in continuum I tend to say ends up in a vicious cycle where everything sort of follows the same track and we don't get off Groundhog Day. But we had CLI, which is continuum loop infinitum, V, which is viral disease extermination, and I infinitum. So Kravik is the first one, is this complex one to do with counter consumer restraints process, which is CRG1, CRG2, CRG3, convert rogue, SISI, or CB's inversion to good. So it's the whole process of the whole, ultimately that is exactly how it happened. So that's how my CADs had recognized it in the hopes and aspirations that SAFCOMMS are, and that's all they are, to the ultimate reality of creating a system whereby I could actually put this into process through the creative tools that I had in process in the Emotsis system. So, and then we have the spiritual arc web levels. So we have SAW levels, spiritual arc web levels. We have rope arc web, raw F4, faith arc web, HAW, hope arc web, LAW, life arc web, and SAW Kravikt is a product, I suppose, where you'd say the spiritual arc web. And then the second levels are the SAW support arc web, HAW2, help arc web, law light arc web. Instead of hope, it's light. Law 2 is light arc web, and then CAW is the charity arc web. So instead of law being the life arc web, we end up. So what do we have? We have the support arc web, the hope arc web, the help arc web is the HAW 2. The law 2 is the light arc web rather than law HAW 1, which is the hope arc web, and core CAW is the charity arc web, which replaces the life arc web in level 1. Right, next we move on to the RAL and gold. So recoup all losses, safeguard your own property. RAL is recoup all losses, safeguard your own property is what gold is. RAL web, RAL dome, RAL shield. With the RAL options, the gold add extra security, gold web, gold dome, and gold shield. Please ask. These are products, through a lot of work and a lot of processing, as I found out as I went through my CADSA, I'm able to put in process and secure things and put people in security in the system that they need to be in. But this takes a lot of work and a lot of hard work. These are things I'd hoped for at the origin when I was thinking things up that I could make happen. Next, we have the stealth seals. So these are stealth seals, and we have dark, which blocks the undercurrents, light, which blocks loss through skimming, dark/light, which gives a balanced seal, and gold is protection. MTWI stands for micro theft wall inversion. I've left them totally open to interpretation, but a micro theft wall inversion is where you get into the minutiae of like red tape that's around you, and you're able to invert it through a process of turning it into something that is a light product. Ultimately, it releases the light product that it is stolen. Okay, so that's just a MTWI is like a process of inverting sort of serpent networks that can steal ideas or take privilege or creation from you without your permission. Then we have the XOR. So when creating my first ArcWeb system, I felt drawn to supporting projects involving areas of outstanding natural beauty or national parks. With the recycling of some of the micro theft wall inversion waste product, I felt I would be able to web in some of these sometimes vast areas, drawing grassroots initiatives from the infrastructure web created by the product. I plan this to involve conservation initiatives and infrastructure taken from the overall vision of Largo. Largo, see Umosris, will explains what Largo is. Indeed, XOR started out as a LAR-web project, but instead of being an interior Arc web during the development of SAF, it seemed to develop as an exterior Arc web, hence XOR. And this explains something of the color coding to do with Umosris, because within the non-taxable areas of Umosris, where SAF is a free product and you're able to use it, and any public service sector is paid for on a means tested basis. When what you actually have here is the interior is the color codes change. So we have, like with the MTWI waste product on the exterior, that is a positive thing, but on the interior that is a negative thing. So the color changes when it comes inside. So the network is, the outer people have a different color coding to the people inside. So that explains some of how it became an XOR project rather than an interior art project. Right, so next we have the raw four-horn law. The four arc web structures, as I've touched upon in Kravikt, are rope, faith, hope, and life, meaning support, help, light, and charity. There are two levels so far within the ArcWeb structure of each of these four elements. Raw 1 is what it appears to be a strong force, but one that is by definition most raw. The second level of raw is a spiritual ArcWeb that is structured like a web of ultrafine web. That's more like, the MTWI waste product, in a way. This is just a definition of how the ArcWeb has evolved from something that is just energy or drive to a much more complicated, refined, and shared community of ArcWeb connections that is universal. Each element has its own function and can be used in conjunction with others or as a singularity. SAF represents the faith system. The next level up in the underpin of all ArcWeb infrastructure, hope or light, this is connected through the SAFCOMMS organization through a series of matrices. First being the LRDM. Don't worry too much about these, but these are processes of getting towards the light web. So the LRDM, the level and return discretion matrix. With light, this becomes the LRDHM, level and return discretion and healing matrix. Purity of light is structured through the LLDM, or liquid light dimensional matrix. When joining SAF, the field connection is prevalent through the LLDM, and this is the bond structure between all SAF agents to each other and between and to their hardware and software. Ultimately, this becomes universal interconnections to angels or beings from other worlds who connect directly to Earth, and ultimately power is able to bring internet. This is what I'm saying now, is are able to bring internet and communication systems direct from space. But that's just the first process of talking about this is starting with the three elements combined to create the law. This is fundamental to the progression of the ArcWeb into the next two dimensions, which bring about the reality of the infrastructure which SAF is evolving towards. In these dimensions, life is not only tied up in an arc web, but also regenerated into the grassroots of cyber-dimensional creativity. To read more about this fully, visit our latest website, umosris.ucos.net. Then we move on to the security products, which obviously become the physical infrastructure under umosris. But in the initiative was to start to get the spiritual network setups around the world, so we can, you get your layers around the earth, all that sort of thing, as it processed through time, through the origin, from the origin upwards. So we start with bridge. On the spiritual arc web, bridge is the shortest arc jump on the system to complete the entire arc loop and connect Saw to Law back through Earth and into the system again. Because of the structure, Bridge is the overseer of events. This is how Bridge was originally set up in the Arc of Origin. With multiple arc systems, it is now operational as a widely dispersed short arc jump, which can be used at strategic points or danger hotspots such as on busy roads or motorways. This could also be used for private security means, both in military and possibly military and civilian life. The following commodities on the menu are the exterior systems supported by Bridge: fault finding, diagnosis of systems, and search and find, ARC language translation not yet provided, CAPS, crime and accident, premonition prevention services, and BFW, balanced funnel web. Right, let's talk about those as we go through it. So fault finding. Fault finding is a commodity that Bridge can enable, provided that the spiritual arc web is accessible on the system where the fault might lie. Using Bridge with fault finding in mind enables a more fluid, quicker, and accurate way of managing your systems. Although not tested commercially yet, results have proved positive for fault finding in a few situations, such as electrical wiring faults in a house. There is potential for this in the spheres of engineering, logistics, road safety, and IT. To name but a few areas, this could vastly improve the efficiency of the way things are done, and more so with considerable ease in achieving results. Right, then we come on to CAPS. Another use for Bridge is a CAPS trademark, crime and accident premonition and prevention service. Bridge has the potential to be used some months in advance to predict danger or damage to people and infrastructure. The scope for this is enormous, especially in areas vulnerable in terrorism and serious crime or accident hotspots. The work is ongoing, and the requirement is to formulate the data required from Bridge and to provide the relevant information to the correct department. This is also a project that I'd never been able to set up without the love, support, and charity of my dear friend, mentor, and confidant at the time, Roy Pitchford, who's still a great friend of mine. Fortunately, he's moved away, but it'd be good to see him again, discuss some of the stuff we set up, because obviously in the process of me setting this up, there has to be infrastructure and technology created to enhance these systems, and that is part of the process. So that's why I give Roy Pitchford a big thumbs up there, because he had a company called CAPS, which I was involved with. It was to do with caravan transportation, but he is also a guy who knows about some of the phenomena I'm talking about, although he's quite tongue-in-cheek when I discussed it with him. Maybe I wasn't articulate enough, maybe I'd only hoped for it, I only, in the SAFCOMMS phase, I hadn't put it to physical reality, but he understood where I was leading to, and he had great belief in me, that guy, and I love him greatly. Anyway, we move on to VDMU and VDME. This is the Visual Data Matrix Earth, is what VDME stands for, and applies in terms of SAF to the information that is purely global in essence. To know how the arc web structure operates is to see things in two halves: the Visual Data Matrix Earth and the Visual Data Matrix Universal, VDMU. These two sides are split on SAF with the intention of keeping global issues separate from universal ones. The reason being the upper half is the global one. Without the contextualization of the alpha universe, in the SAFCOMM stage, this universe was lower than the Earth. When that changed, the universe goes above, but let's not beat about the bush too much for that. The realm becomes unstructured. This way, the two support each other. Two levels equate to one system. Without shields in between, one becomes a surrogate to the other. As in the beginning, the universe is a surrogate to the Earth. Ultimately, the Earth is something to, aspire to become. The Earth wants to become universal. So it's a changing process. In the valleys, the weight is evenly distributed, but gravity dictates that the hills have more. To live in the hills does not necessarily make you heavier than someone who dwells in the valleys. That's like a description of how, in the valleys, the weight is evenly distributed, but gravity dictates. this, yeah. So in the valleys, the weight is evenly distributed, but gravity dictates that the hills have more. So obviously there's density in the hills. There's not just air in between. But to live in the hills does not make you necessarily heavier than someone who dwells in the valleys. So you shouldn't take more because you live in the hills or live in the valleys, because even though you live in a different part, you're still the same. There's still the same relationship. We're still either universal people. We're still interconnected with the universe. Likewise, as the alpha universe progresses to secondary and tertiary levels, those that remain within the alpha universe require shields to prevent intercontextualized subversion to or from the higher levels of universal infrastructure. Indeed, there would also be some requirement for subdivision within each realm itself. Take an instance of VDME, the requirement of countries to shield privileged information between one and the other, whilst at the same time making their country relationships and business possible. This then means the further division of VDME and VDMU to levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on. This would keep any number of potential relationships possible by arranging a reciprocal returns (RR) privilege system to maintain a balance and quality to the amount of worth gained on each side and at every level within. Now, there are system splits for phenomena on Eumotsis, which are put in place to ensure that even the integrity of the software on certain computers that are endowed with the light web have been kept sacrosanct. So one web browser doesn't know what the other web browser is doing, or one, say, window cannot read what another window is doing. Interlaying security, again, through programming through the websites, as I started to do, the interface was first programmed. This is all the SAF phase. There's no knowledge of how to program through command prompts and all the other systems that I'm using now. But what I was doing then was I was doing interface programming. I was programming the screens, the LCDs. Ultimately, through time, we're getting programming. So there were system splits and processes of security put into the systems that were the universal one. So gradually, there's been technology that's come up around this sort of thing and put the whole thing together for certain, well, depending on your liquid property, depending on your Powy aura, ultimately, whether that applies to you. Because when you log into your interface and start working with it and start programming with it, when it becomes universal, obviously it'll all be interface, and the whole thing needs to be secure and have these divisions in it, in the light book, in the light web, in the programs that are in place to make the thing work. So there's no connections, there's no sort of illicit transactions or danger of things looking at things that should be privileged from the other and all those things. So in the interface world, this has been programmed, and ultimately all over the world in the processing of this, in the way that it started right at the bottom and went up through the whole earth, we have had countries set up, we have had borders, we've had specific, and it's true, when you go to another part of the world and you visit there and you're on your own and there's no one there who's come out with you to talk, to tell people what happened when you're out there, people do not know what you did when you're in that part of the world. I don't know if you noticed that, but I noticed I went to France for a year. When I came back, it's like people have total blank knowledge of what happened to me in France. They know a lot about what I do when I'm around them here. They have, it's very difficult to relay that information through ESP or psychic connections unless you have a conversation with someone and actually tell them what you did. But even then, they don't know. It's not in their psyche. They don't know. So there's this spiritual border anyway around certain areas of the world, which is natural and good and should be there, and it needs to be divided but united through connections going out, as I talked in my previous videos, etc., etc. So, obviously there needs to be involvement and conversations about this sort of thing. So, and also when I went to South Africa recently, I came back and I had to give lectures about it, and people did not know what had happened when I was out there. People didn't understand the spiritual psyche. They don't. There's no global spiritual connection, and there's a reason for that, because privileged information has to be kept from people, but we need these reciprocal returns to make the whole process operate. So anyway, this whole process is changing now. In order to see the Earth, the alpha universe is rising above it. Some of the universe will still remain beneath. That will be entitled to come through the inner Earth in order to join the directive of universal privilege upon the rest of the Earth. That will happen when you see how this privilege system is now working. Shielded by the light web, we in the universal Earth will be able to interface with the global Earth in order to structure it correctly for future areas of universal privilege. The Earth will be able to interface with us too, and the inner Earth, therefore, with both sides in order to be the mediator of the entire process of reward sharing. In the universe, ascended beings have already begun interfacing with us to protect the deserving of the, or communicating with us, I should say, with us to protect the deserving of the planet before the construction of the alpha universe on Earth began. In infrastructure, in technology, and possibility has been around, it's been starting, it's been coming in waves, but it's not fully here yet. The whole Umos's reality is not yet here. Therefore, in order to interface with us, or if you are one of us or the mediator class, you may access the Lifebook, my father's book, if you like, who I love eternally, and I extend my deep gratitude to you all, for all his hope for me and his most important gift of all, the Word, which is my program language. And actually, when I started programming, and for a long, long time, all the programming I did was in this Sprache, this word, this language, which you will see on Umotsis all written, joined up in long lines of text, which just looks like DNA to some people. But this is the program language that I use and have used at times. Use now, but not so much. But it's led me on to the whole interface programming and the whole programming of the human psyche. So to install the extension on Google Chrome, go to the web store and search something like Login Easier. I choose this browser in particular, but there are others available. Now that no longer operates, unfortunately. I've left that in there because they did do some good work with us. But the whole thing literally just go on YouTube now and just type in something universal, something takes your fancy, and try and lead on from that and fill your stuff with good things, not just worthless gossip about celebrities, all that stuff. Some of it's quite interesting, but pretty pointless. Anyway, also please note that if you have any access to the dark web, it will be better for you if you delete all software connected with it before interfacing with the light web. Please see light web on this website, second option, see why this is and how we intend to operate. Well, actually, what's happened is as the facility of the Lifebook has come within the boundaries of where I'm setting up the Moses practice, what's happening is the dark web is becoming the communications currency on the earth, because we're trying to override 5G. The dark web is not so damaging, I don't think, to the world. I think it's got some good assets. It does smother illegal activity and all that's the thing, as I talk about in a minute. But I think with the Bitcoin and all this sort of thing and the future, the way the world's changing, I think the parts that aren't universal will probably definitely be more fluent and in a better situation with the Tor system. I can see that happening. I can't see it being terribly dangerous unless people start to get affected by the bad side of it. And it's not to say you can't interact with the light web when you're on it. It's just do not be tempted to do anything illegal on it, because that will write you out, especially if it's abhorrent to the Holy Spirit. Right. So that was quite a long one. So a long explanation. Some of these are shorter now, so we'll get through them quicker. Okay, PMs, pre-arm or pre-arm molecules. Actually, what I'll do is I'll split this video into two. So I'll stop this here, and I'll carry on straight afterwards. 1 second.